welcome back to the Healthcare Executive Insights podcast. My name is Elliot Sloan with the Macallan Group. Today, we're super excited to welcome our guest, Mr. Sean Fetcho, who is the co-founder and CEO of Verséa Health. Verséa Health is a diversified life science company committed to delivering innovative, high-value diagnostic and therapeutic solutions to improve healthcare quality and access. Sean, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today.
Thank you, sir. How you doing?
Doing great. Happy holidays.
Yeah, time is near, right? We actually get a few days off here soon, so I'm excited.
Likewise. So, Sean, tell us a little bit about your professional background, and then we'll transition into Verséa Health.
Sure. Yeah. So, New York guy, 17 plus years in the healthcare space, and really, cut my teeth in publishing. Started with one oncology journal back in 2005 for every medical oncologist and hematology oncologist in the country. Proven to be a successful journal, and then replicated that model and expanded. So I had one for every fellow going through their residency, every oncology nurse. I had a news tabloid, a peer-reviewed journal. I built online properties that are still all of these are still in existence today. And then got into the cardiology world with the American College of Cardiology, started working with the American College of Chest Physician, American Urology Association, American Society of Hematology, and working with all of these different associations to replicate what I did in oncology. Then built two journals for the American College of Cardiology that are still in circulation today, CardioSource World News and CardioSource Interventional News. Most of my web properties are still in existence today. All of my publications, I'm up to 8, are still around today. Wow. I then decided to transition into the medical meeting side of the world in healthcare. And we built a set of regional and annual meetings in the chronic and acute pain setting.
Sure.
We were the largest educators around the opioid epidemic and largest educators in the world around the analgesics and comorbidities and pain.
Sure.
We grew that meeting series and sold that. It trades on the London Stock Exchange back in 2015. When we exited that, we were around for 4 years. And during those 4 years, upon exit, I really started building out the whole concept around Verséa Health. And, over my years, and I'm young compared to my executive team, who most of them have 25 plus years in the healthcare space. And when I look at the current system, I see it as a broken system, and we'll get into that. And so Verséa Health was born around and predicated around this whole disruptive way of looking at healthcare from a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. And right now we're in reactive medicine.
Sure.
And so Verséa Health conceptualized in July of 2018. We started commercializing product in April of 2019. And now we're here today, ending out 2022 with, explosive hockey stick growth. And I think we're doing a lot of eye-opening, groundbreaking, and innovative things in the healthcare space. So that's my brief background. Outside of that, I've always been an entrepreneur and building other companies. I built some online magazines in the consumer world in New York City and Miami. I've invested in other deals outside of healthcare and in the agrotech space. So we actually just acquired an agrotech company. So the only division of Verséa Health that is not specifically healthcare focused, even though it does have an element of healthcare to it, is our patented proprietary shelf life technology for shipping fruit, vegetables, and flowers. So we can get into that as well. So
that is quite the summary, and thank you for sharing. You're an extremely busy guy with a lot of accomplishments, so we're very excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
And your point really hits home with a lot of the conversations we've been having, which is, we're talking about the healthcare system being broken and mostly addressing symptoms and not really the root cause of people's problems and medical issues. Why do you think we've been doing that for so long? And why do you think these new modalities like regenerative medicine and functional medicine have been so suppressed?
Yeah, so I have a very good answer to this. When you look at the current infrastructure of healthcare, right? You don't own your healthcare. Do you manage? How long have you been with your bank? Let's just, start there. Give me a no. I don't know who you
10
bank
years.
with, but 10 years, right?
Sure.
Almost nobody in the United States is with their healthcare plan for 10 years. Why? Because they change jobs. So people don't have 20, 30-year careers anymore like they used to. Therefore, the current system is broken. You have the five big, they call them the big five. The five big payers own the entire healthcare system when it comes to decision making. What's covered under insurance? That is the Cignas, the Aetnas, the United, the Blue Cross Blue Shields. Sure. They run the doctors and the hospital systems. They decide what's going to be covered under their plan and what's not. Therefore, changing and altering the way a doctor thinks, because a doctor's not in the business of losing money. They're not going to provide care to a patient that's not going to be covered, sure. Right? So they're conflicted, and they don't have the decision-making authority now that they're under some big system. So when you look at, I call it the game of hot potato, right? What does that mean? Hot potato is where, nobody wants to get stuck with the patient when they end up having an issue. So what is that issue?
Sure.
Stage 4 cancer, stage 3 cancer. Nobody should ever be diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. That is a reactive medicine system, not a preventative care system, which if we had the right preventative care in place, you wouldn't have someone being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Sure. Right? So how do you offset that with the reactive symptomatic care? Well, currently, if United Healthcare, if I have my insurance plan with my staff under, I think we're under Blue Cross right now, and I have someone that leaves in 2 years, and Blue Cross spends thousands of dollars in preventative care for that employee that's under my health plan, then they leave. Okay, so that's a game of hot potato. So now I put all this money into you, Elliot, right? And then you go somewhere else, and I was investing in you as a preventative care. You're healthy, you're young, you work out, you have the proper nutrition. You're very little on healthcare cost to my insureds. As a payer, you're not costing me a lot of money, and I'm investing in preventative colonoscopy testing or colonoscopy, cardiometabolic testing, whatever, to look at how we can be preventative to your care. And then you leave and go to Aetna because you take a new job.
Sure.
Well, now I'm left, in the hole with, costs that I invested in you, and I'm getting nothing on return on investment on that. And on the contrary, if you're the Aetna and now you take me in, and you're just waiting to see when that patient has something wrong, and then you're stuck with that bill, right? So it's a game of hot potato. Who's going to get stuck with the patient when they do get diabetes, they do get heart disease, they do get, cancer?
Sure.
And the system needs to be reversed in that I've been with Bank of America for 20 years. Why can't I choose a health plan, and that health plan can be transferable with me wherever I go in my career? Therefore, that I'm investing in that healthcare plan, and the healthcare plan is investing in me. So just like a bank invests in you when you want to get a loan, or you're showing good credit over time, the bank's going to help you out. Well, my good healthcare over time is meaningless in the current system that we have today.
Yeah. So you don't want to get caught with the potato or caught with the bag, they'll say. It's not necessarily the providers that don't want to get caught with the bag. It's the payers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the payers are in control of the providers, and the health systems are in control of the providers. When you have a huge conglomeration and consolidation taking place, the days of you going to a pediatrician where the pediatrician knew your family, took care of your brothers and sisters, maybe even your parents, they knew the family, they would sit with you and understand what's going on with your child. Now they're just owned under some big health system. They got to see a certain amount of patients in that day to even pay their bills. Sure. Right? Because every year healthcare reimbursement costs are going down for the payer. For the provider. Right. Yeah. So if Aetna tells me, oh, you know what? I used to reimburse you on that test, $60. Now when you do it, you're going to get $40. Okay. Well, how am I going to survive as a clinician if I keep being driven down on reimbursement? Well, I have to see more patients. So what happens when you see more patients? Patient care goes down. Sure. The level of care goes down. You're just a number that they're just churning out each day to make up for the lost income that they had previous years.
Yeah, it's a sad and scary situation. We know that the cost of products have gone through the roof. The cost of labor has gone through the roof. And we're hearing that reimbursements have come down over the past few years. How is that possible?
Yeah, I really don't know because costs of healthcare go up. But I'll tell you what most people don't know is that the big five own the PBMs. So pharmacy benefit management programs were put in place to help this problem and help reduce costs and out-of-pocket costs for patients. Well,
Yeah,
they've been all acquired through mergers and acquisitions through the big five. They own the PBMs. So now they own the entire supply chain of
sure.
payer reimbursement, and that's driving healthcare costs up. And who's winning? It's the United Healthcares and the Aetnas. I don't know if anybody listening to this podcast wants to do the fun exercise of Googling what the revenues are of some of these big five, but
Oh, they've all had massive gains over the past few years.
That's correct.
It increased profit margins by record numbers.
Right. And so our tagline at Verséa Health is your health, your hands. And the only way to tackle this broken system is for people to be proactive with their healthcare and not reactive with the current system at hand. If you ask a 25, 30-year-old, 35-year-old, even I'm 40, right? And if you ask me, I'm paying, $300 a month on my healthcare out of pocket, with my insurance plan, even though my company may be paying a portion, I'm still going out of pocket. Then you have a deductible. Then you have copays. So when you add all that up, the average American's paying $4,800 a year for healthcare. Are you using $4,800 a year of healthcare? Did you go to the doctor and do $4,800 worth of healthcare? And the answer likely is no. So a lot of times we're paying a lot of money for something that we're never actually going to touch. You got to get $5,000 of payments, let's call that 500 a month, give or take, just to get you 400 a month, just to get you to that level of where you actually are using your healthcare. And I think for a younger generation, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Sure.
Because why are you paying for something you're never going to use?
Sure.
Now catastrophic insurance is great. And there are times, I got hit by a car 10 years ago and going for a run in Miami and almost died.
Wow.
Okay. Yes. My healthcare plan was critical at that point. Why? Because my bills were over $200,000 just between the hospital and all the care I had. Then I was $150,000 in on physical therapy to learn how to walk again for a year.
Wow.
So 350 grand of cost. Absolutely. A plan works for that.
Yep.
But for the day-to-day living, why can't I own my own healthcare? If I want to go get a test done for $19.99, I could probably get that over the counter and do it myself at home, as opposed to going to a doctor, waiting a week to get in, sitting in a busy waiting room for 40 minutes where they're late to see me, where people are sick. Then I get a test done and then my copay is $50. Sure. Like, I could have just done that for $20 through a telehealth visit or a concierge medicine visit, or literally going to and ordering a test online and doing it at home.
Yep.
Right. So I think you're going to see a shift. The pandemic just accelerated the shift of thinking. Never before did people understand things like PCR, antigen, antibody, over the counter and OTC testing, or self-testing and sticking a swab in their nose. So that's accelerated the shift of medicine. And I think people are going to be more proactive with doing some of the home treatment options.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what is happening with the consumerization of healthcare. People want healthcare to come to their home. They don't want healthcare just to be in the doctor's office and at the emergency room. And that's, the first sign of people trying to be more proactive, I believe, right? Is getting the diagnostics done at home. And also you see a push of people really trying to dial in their own personal intake of, supplements and doing more advanced screenings to, not be, like you said earlier, looking at a disease once it's already been onset and you've been, sitting on it for a long period of time.
And that goes into our precision medicine, right? And so, there's as Verséa Health, as we have three core pillars of how we look at this healthcare system moving forward. And I think this is why we're so disruptive and we're breaking barriers to our way of thinking. I mean, we have 30 plus doctors on our team, of which most of their full time they understand the shift that's taking place. And when you look at the three key pillars, you look at the innovations of healthcare through cellular research. And that's our scientific discovery division. Well, what do I mean by cellular research? Well, I mean that your cells and my cells and everyone else's cells are not all the same.
Sure.
The way your body and your anti-aging is taking place could be different than mine. What does that mean? That means that if I could look at your cellular core functions, the 7 core functions of your cells, and we could run assessments and panels on your cells to determine where they are in the level of fatigue, the level of energy, the level of functionality, or how they're metabolizing, right? Oxygen levels. These are things that people want to understand, because you could be a 40-year-old, but my cells could be of that of a 60-year-old right now. Sure. That's anti-aging. What people think about with anti-aging is they think, oh, boob implant, breast implants, Botox. I want to get some calf muscle implants to look good. That's aesthetics. That's the outside. I'm looking at what's going on in your inside, your core cellular functions. And if we can determine precision medicine, and I can come up with treatments based on how your cells are behaving, that's where medicine's going. That's where regenerative medicine, biologics, and that's where our whole entire core function on our research. We just filed patents around our mitochondria assessment. Nobody in the world can replicate what we're doing out of UC San Diego and our labs there. So we're going to be launching that in Q1. And this will be a panel that individuals can run on themselves monthly or quarterly. Sure. We'll have biomarkers in place, and the machine learning algorithm gets stronger. So I can tell you, Elliot, that, hey, you've been running your mitochondria assessment over the last 18 months. Here's where you started. Here are biomarker checkpoints to say, look, your mitochondria levels have actually gone up. Your cellular function has gone up because you've been changing X, Y, or Z. Or you know what? They've gone down because you're stressed. Your cortisol levels are off. Your peptide levels are off. Maybe your hormone levels are imbalanced because you're overworked. You're not sleeping enough. You're eating crappy. You're partying too much, right? This is a way for people to manage their health and be proactive. Sure. So then we can nip something in the butt like diabetes or cardiometabolic issues. And maybe we can slow that inevitable thing that could be happening to you, right? I'll give you one more quick story on this. I lost an older friend. He was a good friend of my brother's in high school, and they were 3 years older than me. He died of colorectal cancer a year back at 41 years old.
Oh, man, sorry.
And I say that because right now, no insurance carrier pays for your colorectal cancer screening until you're 50. I think they finally lowered it to 45.
That's crazy.
But if you're 35 years old and you want to go and get a colorectal cancer screening, it's not covered by insurance. Why? Right?
And they're the ones who are going to have to pay, which is crazy. I know it goes back to, hot potato example, but in those circumstances where that, in New Jersey, pretty much everyone has Horizon. It's the big payer in the state of New Jersey. So even if employees move companies, they'll probably go to a company and have another Horizon plan. Why wouldn't Horizon do everything in their power to call out these diseases as early as possible? Because they're going to pay for it for the diagnostic, or they're going to pay for it when it's a stage 3 cancer.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it'd be an interesting interview to have somebody like me on with somebody like, a United or a Horizon or any sort of payer to talk through that, because it does have to change. For the first time in United States history, we are going to see where the 70-year-old, anyone older than 70, supersedes that of someone under 18. Okay, that means our population is growing older. Yeah. The baby boomers are in their 70s and now going into their 80s. People are living longer, which is great. But how can a healthcare system pay for somebody that when life expectancy maybe used to be in the 70s, now is climbing? People are living longer, but nobody's procreating, and you have the younger generation that aren't having kids. So you got an older aging population in the United States. How is a current healthcare system going to pay for that? And I don't know the answer. I can't give you that. I just know that we have to embrace change, and the FDA needs to embrace change on their protocols, on getting certain things like regenerative medicine and biologics and cannabis, and these things that could be really, really helpful for preventative care. and maintenance therapy as instead of the reactive symptomatic process, which is, hey, we're a pill popping nation. Why don't we just put you on 4 meds? These are all band-aids to make you think you're feeling better, but it's not actually fixing the root problem. Right.
Yeah, that was one of my questions for you, is talking about regenerative medicine and using one's own body to heal. Why has this specialty of medicine not really come to fruition on the mass markets? Even platforms like Google don't let you promote these services. And we know the payers aren't covering and reimbursing these services of regenerative medicine, but the data is there that shows your body is your best healer. Is it not?
Correct. It absolutely is. So I just had a child 8 weeks ago, and, speaking to friends that are also had kids or recently had kids, I'm like, well, did you bank the tissue and the cells? And they said, what are you talking about? They didn't even know. And I said, well, you know that you can bring a kit to the hospital, and at birth, you can derive healthy birth cells and healthy birth blood.
Yep.
And healthy birth tissue, and bank it, and then store it in a cryopreserved situation for 18 years or however long you need to. Yep. And you can pull down from those cells or that tissue for even the mother or the father, or even the sister or brother of that child or the child. And then you can use healthy cells at birth, right? Your cells are aging, just like you pick an avocado or you pick an apple or anything, right? What happens to it? Over time, it degrades. Well, unfortunately, that's what's happening to all of our cells. We're aging every single day. Your organs are aging. Your mitochondria levels are changing. This is all happening, right? So if you derive from the healthy birth cells, those are the freshest, cleanest, purest cells that anyone could have. Regenerative medicine is real. It is going to be the most disruptive, newest innovation in healthcare. It already has been around for decades. The issue currently is that you have a lot of lobbying taking place with big pharma. Big pharma needs, these medications. Lipitor, you know how much money Lipitor has made Pfizer over the last, 25 years? Billions and billions of dollars. People can change, right? The only way to change, though, is the FDA coming up with clear SOPs, clear protocols, and pathways to an IND or a botanical with cannabis to understand how we can get these things approved. The reason they're blackballed on Google is because there is, unfortunately, a lot of bad apples out there. There are people that come out with regenerative technologies or treatments that aren't validated. Right. So we need to come up with a process for approval so we can get the true clinical data, the true clinical research. The reason the companies aren't spending millions of dollars on research is because there's no guarantee that the FDA is going to grant that because there's no protocol. So there's nothing to say, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z and I get approved, then I'm going to be covered under insurance. So it's a super high risk for companies like us to invest the millions of dollars in the research pathway if the FDA is going to come out with a protocol 6 months from now that's going to squash it. So that's the challenge. The only way to change this is through Medicare, Medicaid, and CMS, and through FDA changing and outlining a clear path, just like they do with an RX medication and with an IND pathway.
Yeah. And even on the provider level, we work with a lot of interventional pain groups and multi-specialty practices that really believe in regenerative medicine, but we can't even promote it on their platforms because then they can't run, advertising campaigns. They might have one page on their site about regenerative medicine, and we might be running a campaign talking about, minimally invasive interventional pain services. And they can't even run those programs because they have a little bit of copy on the site that mentions regenerative medicine. So every campaign gets shut down. It's insane.
It is insane.
So now the providers are like, I'm staying away from it. I believe in it, but I'm not touching it. And the patients suffer.
The patients, patients are unfortunately on the bottom of the spectrum of the healthcare system. Patients always are last. They're the ones that feel the hurt in these situations. I mean, Kobe Bryant, perfect example. He did stem cell treatment his entire career, but he had to fly over to Germany to get that done. I've spoken to a lot of professional athletes. I personally have done calls with them about treatments to help them, throughout their career. And they have to fly over to Dubai. They go over to Mexico. They go over to,
Wow.
Germany to get these treatments done. I mean, exosomes currently right now, you cannot administer exosomes in this country. That's insane. That doesn't even make any sense. There are zero side effects to regenerative medicine. If you ever watch an RX commercial, they'll give you, here's your symptoms, here's the treatment. Oh, and then here's a list of all adverse reactions and side effects. And the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Every 30-second commercial, they save 10 seconds for the side effects.
That's right. That's right. So, and look, there's a home for RX medication, but let's face it, we are an overprescribed nation. Okay. The average American is on multiple pills, anything from antipsychotics to benzos to anti-inflammatories to opioids and pain meds to cardiovascular treatments, and cholesterol treatments. It's insane. And it's got to stop. I mean, 70%, and don't quote me on the exact statistic here, but a very high percentage of prescription medications in this world are prescribed in America. Okay.
Yeah.
It is insane when we are only 330 million people of an 8 billion people population in the world, but we're 50% plus of the prescription medications that are prescribed in this world. Sure. And I don't know what the number is now. I'm going to look it up, but I know it's above 50%. It's very high. So
it seems like an endless battle fighting big pharma and the big five payers. It just seems like they have such a strong grip over the industry. There's no angle to get anything achieved.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to pull a Joe Rogan podcast on you, and we need someone to look up stats, but let's just look up United Healthcare revenue.
Sure.
2021, right? I want to just give some of these people an eye-opening statistic. You want to know what their revenue was? $287.6 billion. Okay. So I just want to put that in context. Amgen, which is one of the largest biotech companies in the world, is about 26 billion. Okay. Roche, Pfizer, Bayer, Johnson & Johnson, none of these companies are 287 billion in revenue. None of them.
Wow.
So you're talking about payers that have more revenue than Apple. Apple doesn't do $287 billion. Okay. So this is what's going on in the system. And people need to open their eyes and realize that we have got to get a hold of the way that we're running this country when it comes to healthcare, because it is going to cause a lot of issues moving forward. You got patients that are willing to try a connective tissue matrix injection on a soft tissue damage to repair a torn labrum, and they can't even get that done unless they pay cash for it, because the system's not going to cover that, but they'll cover you being on medications for the rest of your life on pain meds.
Sure.
And pain meds aren't doing anything but tricking your body to think you feel better, but it's not actually doing anything to heal the root problem, right? So why would we not administer something like a soft tissue injection that could literally help you? And even if it doesn't, it's a minimal cost and it has no side effects. So it may not work on everybody, but it's not going to cause any problems for you if it doesn't. Meanwhile, you go on a bunch of medications. What do you have to do? You have to go on a bunch of more medications to offset the issue. You go on a pain med. Now you got to go on OIC medications because you're constipated.
Sure.
So like, okay, so now you turn someone into, could potentially heal their issue to now I'm going to put you on 3 prescriptions and you're never going to get better because all it's doing is tricking your brain and putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
Sure. And it's really a generational issue too. I can give you a quick example. My wife and I have really been looking to dial in our health, and we are working with a functional medicine provider, and we did very in-depth blood work where they're checking all of our biomarkers, just like you were mentioning earlier. And we learned from these diagnostics that, my wife has some gut issues, and they recommended supplements and some peptides. And of course, this is not covered by insurance. It's all cash paying. And my wife shared, this program that this provider put together with her parents. And they were like shocked. Like, what is this? Is this like witchcraft? Like, why don't you just go to the family medicine doctor and get a
Right.
prescription for amoxicillin if you have gut issues.
That's
But
right.
it's like, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to really fine tune the body and all the systems in the body. But,
Yeah.
it's such an that this format or this specialty of medicine of being preventative and functional medicine for older generations is almost make believe.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's a generational approach. And what it comes down to is education. So to go back to what you had mentioned earlier around doctors not doing treatments because they're scared or because it's not covered under the big five payers or any of the payers for that matter. So the difference with what Verséa Health does that's not ordinary in the current setting of healthcare companies and the way doctors determine who they're going to work with is we are a by physician for physician model. And what that means is that it's not Sean going to the doctors and try to convince them to purchase something. Our core pillar is education. Like we were the largest CME and CE providers in the country. I did the same thing in oncology, right? We put on some of the best conferences to get these doctors the core education they need to make the proper decisions on how to best treat. And so our pillar of education is we drive clinician to clinician interactions. So our doctors will get on and educate another 15 or 20 or 25 doctors on a WebEx around something like natural protein matrix and the use of fusion surgeries, or connective tissue matrix and the use of soft tissue injections to help offset, pain issues or injury issues that someone could be suffering from. So it's completely educational. And our goal there is to just provide the proper information for the doctor to then make the decision, because you're right, most are uneducated and a lot of the stuff is tucked under the rug. Same thing with cannabis. I mean, there are so many uses for cannabis, whether it's medicinal hemp or medicinal marijuana for someone that's on their deathbed and has stage 4 cancer and suffering. There's a lot of utility in that treatment option.
For sure.
So we try to break the barrier through therapeutics, through research, and through diagnostics, preventative diagnostics. And those are the 3 pillars and foundations of Verséa Health, and why we feel that we provide a lot of value back into the healthcare system. Because unbeknownst to most of these clinicians out there, all of our products actually are covered by insurance. So we do have cash-based options, but insurers and payers are starting to pick up some of the coverage of some of these regenerative and biologics treatments. So we're excited about that. We're just, we're advocating for them to accelerate the pathways and give us clear direction as to what we can and can't do, so then we can invest the millions of dollars into the proper clinical studies to give the doctors even more comfort and more data that they can grab onto to say, wow, this stuff is really working.
Wow. So your growth strategy has not been, let's get a big business development team to get in front of a lot of these providers and push them products. It's let's just be that source of education and knowledge of all these amazing products that maybe these providers have not really been formally educated on, and giving them that opportunity.
Absolutely. And inadvertently, then our clinical team and our biz dev and sales team will then manage the onboarding of those clinicians or those health systems or those large private equity backed institutions. Most of the urgent cares, most of the eye centers and the ophthalmology and optometry centers are all backed by private equity. Sure. Primary care is backed by private equity. There's a big consolidation going on right now. So we help educate those, groups around these types of therapeutic treatments, and then there's a bait and switch, right? What does a private equity fund care about? They care about the bottom line. They care about the multiplier to give back to their fund and the shareholders of that fund. Yep. So what happens to patient care? It becomes pushed to the side again, right? They only care about the top line and the bottom line numbers, so they can spin off and provide their shareholders returns. Where we come in is we say, okay, there's some economics to some of the treatments that we have, and that's relevant to these PE funds and these hospital systems. They care about making money, but really, how do we educate the clinicians on the best first line, second line, third line treatments? As I had mentioned earlier, there is a home for RX medication, but is that the first decision that the healthcare provider should make, or should it be number 4 or 5? Maybe the patient should try this therapeutic injection. Maybe a patient should try acupuncture, massage, meditation. Maybe they should look into changing their health and their fitness and looking at their diet. Then, if none of those things are working, then we put them on a proper RX treatment regimen, right? So there is a home for each of these, but the pecking order right now is off, right? First and second line should be looking at these ancillary therapeutics or diagnostics or health-related treatments before they go under the knife for surgery or before they go on to a prescription med that they're going to have to be stuck on the rest of their life.
Yeah, and it's really getting to them early, right? Getting them quicker and getting testing and exams and diagnostics done earlier in the process.
That's right.
So you have a few different divisions at Verséa. You have the therapeutics, you have diagnostics, you have an ophthalmology division, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah. And discovery.
We call it ophthalmics, and Dr. Sambursky heads up that division. He's a practicing MD, a researcher, a patent holder, and a business guy. He's kind of a unicorn in the doctor world.
Wow.
Because there's not many doctors that can do all of those, but he heads up that division. And he said we have to call it Verséa Ophthalmics. I can't say that word, so I call it eye care. And not only can I not say it, but I can never spell it. So we have a Verséa eye care division, and the reason being is it's pulling from our innovations in diagnostics, it's pulling from our innovations in therapeutics and regenerative medicine, but it's also pulling from our cellular research and our clinical research. So it's hitting all three of the core pillars. It's a siloed division because it's call plan targets. It's so unique, the eye care world. It's really different than some of the other specialties that we call on. So it's got its own budget, its own team, its own team of doctors, its own sales organization, marketing team, et cetera.
That's awesome. Which division is really the driver going into, the new year? What are you most focused on building?
So our cellular research, we just filed our IP and patents around that. So our Verséa scientific discovery and the work we're doing out of UC San Diego is just incredible. I mean, Dr. Patel, who leads that division, he's one of the world's leading microcellular biologists when it comes to mitochondria. Okay. Our IP is untouchable as to what we've cracked the code on and how we can run these assessments and get really good data back to patients and providers and even the big pharma, right? Pfizer, Amgen, they could use our VCX discovery platform to de-risk assets before they decide to go down a pathway on a molecule, an IND pathway with the FDA. So we're at the root preclinical side of looking at cellular function to determine if that is a pathway that makes sense. Big pharma, they waste millions and millions of dollars on product molecules that they, plan to go down a pathway with that never come to fruition. So we allow them to de-risk that and save some money by utilizing our system. We're launching all that in Q1 and Q2 of next year. So that's a big one. And then our anti-aging mito assessment, which would go into the patient and consumer world. That's where you can take your health into your own hands and cheek swab, send it out to our lab. We'll run an assessment for you and spit out a bunch of data and then biomarker that data over time so we can start to trend your healthcare for you so you can get core data that allows you to make better decisions on your treatment plans as a proactive approach in healthcare. So that one's our biggest as far as value creation.
And that's direct to consumer.
That's direct to consumer, correct. And that's actually launching with a private equity fund. They're going to be white labeling that tech and launching it into their already existing millions of consumers that are health conscious, work out, are focused on that type of healthy, conscious living and owning their own healthcare. So we're excited about that. And then diagnostics has been the pillar. There's no secret that the pandemic accelerated the diagnostics market. Abbott, Quidel, Thermo Fisher, Roche, all these companies, they are multi-billion-dollar companies, but they got in because they know that COVID was here to stay. This is just as another, viral infection and airborne infection that we're going to deal with for the rest of our lives. COVID just doesn't go away. Okay. No. So we knew that, and we got our footprint in the infectious disease area. So strep throat, flu, RSV, extended respiratory panels, COVID, that's a business that is here to stay. And who does most of that testing? Hospitals, and urgent cares, pediatricians, primary care doctors. So we work in those core functions, and we provide a lot of the groundbreaking innovations in diagnostic testing, molecular platform testing into those types of specialties and segments. So that's been a core function. And then obviously regenerative medicine, I mean, we're just at the tip of the iceberg of where that's going to go over the next decade.
Oh, yeah.
That industry is forecasted to be a $720 billion market by 2027.
Wow.
So we're in the early stages of what's going to be a hockey stick growth industry, because people are starting to understand and listen and realize that this type of therapeutic treatment is here to stay, and it's healthy, it's safe, and it's changing people's lives.
Wow. Yeah, you're staying firm in your position with regenerative medicine. You're laying down the foundation, and you're ready for a big splash.
Sure. That's exactly accurate.
Now, with these diagnostics, are you offering them direct to consumer so they could have these tools in their home?
That's right. So we're excited to announce that as well. So yeah, we're our Easy Lab brand. You're going to start to see it in the big box retail and the convenience store sector starting in Q1 of 2023.
Wow.
We had 5 products cleared by the FDA that we're launching, and then we have a bunch more in the pipeline. And this is a grab and go concept. And the whole concept here is that, look, like I said earlier in the podcast, is that healthcare is expensive. And a lot of times people don't want to go spend, the $40 copay, and then, and it's going to ding their deductible to just get a simple screening done. So we are offering over-the-counter solutions to that. We offer an app that's going to provide discounts to your healthcare. We have a PBM card that provides discounts on your prescriptions. So you can go, when you pick up your prescription at your independent pharmacy, your Walgreens, your CVS's, that you can show the PBM card, and you should be able to get a discount on whatever prescription med you're picking up. So this is the healthcare that we're moving into on the consumer front. You want to get a telehealth visit? We're going to provide you 4 options for telehealth locally in your area that gives you the price point for that telehealth visit. You want to go get an x-ray done and you're going to pay cash? We're going to pull real time all the x-ray opportunities for you locally within a 20, 30 mile radius that can charge cash and what price point they're going to be charging you. So It's really owning your healthcare in a retail healthcare setting. And so we're launching that in the convenience stores. You're going to start to see them in some of the convenience stores around the country in February, March. And that grab and go concept would be PDQs that are set up as you check out of a convenience store and say, oh, you know what? I could use that. Hey, I need to use that test. That makes sense. Let me get this for $19.99 or $14.99. So we're excited about that.
Sure. Sean, we're coming close to the end of our conversation here. I want to leave you with this question. And, there's so much more I want to talk to you about. So maybe we'll find time in the new year to get you back on the show. But for today, let me leave you with this. In your opinion, how far can science and technology take us when it comes to fighting disease and slowing down the aging process?
I honestly think that the entire market has been suppressed. I think that you're going to see, once the FDA and other governing bodies in healthcare across the world, I can tell you that Dubai and the UAE and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are opening the floodgates, and they're receptive to this concept of the new innovations in medicine. I think over the next decade, you are going to see a huge shift in the innovations, in the technologies that come out that allow you to take your own healthcare into your own hands and really look at regenerative therapies as the groundbreaking breakthrough in healthcare. So I think you're going to see a huge change. The more we can get out there and educate people, the more people can understand what these treatments do, and then even greater, how they're safe. The fact that efficacy can be there plus safety, we check off all the boxes. And the fact that you can do a treatment, and then if it doesn't work, you don't have a bunch of side effects, is a no harm, no foul type of mindset, is a huge, huge thing. So I'm excited about where it's going to go. I think that everything from orthopedics to gastro and endocrinology and oncology is a big one, cardiovascular and diabetes. I mean, these are things that the world is tackling right now. And if we can look at treatments that can help prevent these from happening to people,
Yep.
it is a game changer in the healthcare system.
1,000%. You're going to see a lot more centenarians running around.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I just saw the founder or the CEO of Girl Scouts. Okay. I saw this on the news last week. She died in Pennsylvania at 107.
Wow.
Look at that. I'm like 107.
Yeah.
She was born in 1915.
Wow.
Think about what that woman saw from 1915 to 2022. Wow. My nana lived till 99. She was born in 1919. Okay. Sure. And she died right before her 100th birthday. And you look at what's happening with world and how fast we're replicating in technology. Every decade, we're moving faster than the previous 2 decades combined.
Oh, yeah.
So we are going to see in our lifetime, we are going to see a lot of advancement over the next 30 to 50 years. My child's never going to drive a car. He's 8 weeks old. He will never have to get behind a wheel and drive a car because in the next 15 years, automation is going to be there, right? So the same type of advancements happening in healthcare, and preventative therapies and preventative diagnostics are going to help solve the broken issues in cancer and cardiovascular and all the things that we're facing.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time for innovations in healthcare and how quickly the technology is just changing the landscape. Hopefully the payers and the providers can get behind it, embrace it, and at the end of the day, give the patients what they deserve, which is excellent care as quickly as we possibly can get it to them.
Yeah. You know, Elliot, you just nailed it. You just nailed it. If the payers and the big pharma start to change their tune and the FDA can start to create and pave a pathway, we're setting ourselves up for a shift. It's a very exciting shift, but it really comes from them. They have to make the change. Sure. And, you know, when you get a $287 billion company like United, I think they're in the driver's seat. All right. Yeah. That is serious revenue. And they are in control of the change. And if they would just start to look at this stuff and pick it up and cover it, more and more patients would do it. More and more doctors would get on board. But a doctor's not in the business of losing money. They're not going to administer something to a patient that's going to cost them $1,000 out of pocket. They can't do that. They have a business to run too.
Couldn't agree more. There's too much power that needs to be reallocated, really is what needs to happen.
Correct.
Sean, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all the amazing things you guys are doing over at Verséa Health. Keep disrupting the industry and helping patients find the treatments and the services and the products that they need. We love to see companies like you doing what you're doing. So kudos and thank you again for your time.
Appreciate it, Elliot. Thank you so much. Happy holidays to everyone that listened. And I hope I didn't bore you. I'm happy to do it again.
Yeah, not at all. It'll make for a wonderful episode. I know our audiences will love tuning in, and we will definitely take you up on a follow-up interview in the near future.
Great. Thanks again. Have a good one.
Take care, Sean.
See ya.